Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
When was the last time you made a mistake in your business? Yesterday? Last week? Or maybe you're one of those rare people who don't make mistakes. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. The truth is, most of us do make mistakes, and so do the people around us. It's how we respond that says a lot about ourselves as individuals and as leaders in the businesses we run. It's a topic Terry Barridge talks about often in his role as communications coach and keynote speaker. A typical response to creating our own mistakes is to beat ourselves up, he says. But it can get worse, as he tells Heather Dawson.
I think the common mistake first up is to kick yourself in the backside because nobody wants to make a mistake, let's face it. And then, it slides downhill a little bit from there too, a little bit of guilt, then shame. And then, of course, ultimately, some people resort to blame, which is the worst end of the spectrum. And it's absolutely the wrong thing to do because when you're blaming, if you hold your hand out and point your fingers, one finger's pointing forward and the other three are pointing back at you. So there should be some message in that for people to think about where they're coming from. You're in a leadership role, so be big enough to say, hey, look, I made a mistake, I am human, and this is the mistake, and let's analyse it and let's look for the solution and let's work together to do that. And I think often people try to do it all on their own, and if they work together with a team, whether it's employees, clients, whatever the situation is, then by putting heads together, they can usually come up with a far better solution for a problem or a mistake along the way.
Well, some people will argue that you can make mistakes as long as you only make them once. Do you agree with that?
No, not entirely. At the end of the day, we've got to all admit that we're human, and if you make a mistake more than once or more than twice, then you really need to seriously look at where you're going with that and say, well, this is a common thing that's happening and I'm making it. What can I do to prevent that? Rather than dwell on it, look at the opposite and look at what can I do to prevent that mistake happening again. Put thought processes in place as well within yourself.
Now, some business cultures may be more forgiving than others. So how important is culture in helping people manage and learn from mistakes?
Tremendous. And for more than that, I think, a culture of people understanding the fact that mistakes do matter in more than one way. They can be a big problem, but at the same time, we can learn a lot from our mistakes. A certain gentleman invented a light bulb, and they said he had to go at it 10,000 times. How many of those were mistakes? And maybe even the solution was a mistake that he fell over, but he had the attitude where he looked at it that that's one less thing that I've got to try as I work towards my goal of achieving what I want to achieve. And I think having that kind of attitude or the attitude of, and we can't always use this, how fascinating. I made a mistake. Wow. Now let's have a look at the mistake. What can I do to fix that? And then have your mindset in that kind of a framework so that you can then look at it from a different perspective and not kick yourself in the butt, not feel guilty, not feel shame, or not get to the bottom end of the scale and try and blame somebody else for an error. We're all human. We all make mistakes.
Well, from a management or a leadership point of view, how do you find a good balance between being understanding and lenient, but at the same time trying to maintain good processes and being a little bit tight on that side of things as well?
Well, all the P's come into play always, I think, particularly at a higher level of management. Planning, preparation, practice. You can provide a great service, but at the other end of it can be providing very poor performance. So we need to really look at the balances there of how you can go about that. And again, I think no man is an island, trying not to be the lone bloke that goes out there or woman that goes out there and charges off. Try to be the person that brings the team in, involves people, and looks at the balance that can be found. Using great language within yourself, I think, is an important thing, and communicating with people. Communicating with people the right way and communicating with yourself the right way so that you've got the right attitude and that they can learn the right attitude and they can learn to be leaders as well.
So if you're the boss in a business and one of your employees makes a real clanger, really stuffs up, what should you do?
That's a good question, really, because you can have two perspectives here. You can say, right, you're an idiot, out you go, so you're sacked. And the other is you can say, well, look, what happened? Again, it's communication. If your team knows that they've made a clanger and that they've got an issue, the first thing they should do is, I think, analyse it, and then can I find a solution? And can I go to the boss and say, I've made this error, but, this is a solution that I've thought about on analysing it. Bosses sit there all day long and they're bombarded with other people's problems, other people's mistakes on an ongoing basis. And at the end of the day, you look at what you've meant to have achieved for your day and you think, God, I'm going to have to work back 2 or 3 hours just to try and get near to what I wanted to achieve today. So if employees are communicated to and understand that the mistakes do matter, but don't just go and expect somebody else to do your thinking for you. Come into the office after you've had a think about it and offer a solution to your problem as well along the way. And discuss it so that you can come up with a brainstorm and maybe tweak that solution. Sometimes it's the little hinges that swing big doors.
So from that boss's point of view, how can he or she ensure that their business is open to mistakes if they happen so that everybody can learn from them?
Well, education and communication, I think, are just so vitally important, and keeping that door open, giving the people that are there, whether they're clients or staff or whoever, giving them the options and an open door so that they can come in and discuss issues with them so that you can overcome these before they become major mistakes and major issues.
Okay, well, Terry, final question. Mistakes can be good for business. Yes or no?
Yes or no. Absolutely. That's my answer. Yes or no. They can be fantastic for business. The light bulb incident, and there's lots of others. Walt Disney, there's so many great, great people in the world that have invented and done amazing things, and they've made a million mistakes along the way doing it. Michael Jordan said, you didn't see the number of times I took a shot at that basket. Just because I'm the highest scorer doesn't mean I probably threw the most number of balls to become the highest scorer. So it's a matter of, yes, it's good for business because people can learn and people are going to make mistakes and people are going to learn. It's just a matter of having the right attitude to it and having the right process in place so that the mistakes aren't too great. No, it's not good for business because you don't want people making silly mistakes continually and then feeling that they've got to blame somebody else or feel guilty about it or not to openly discuss it with you and have the mistake costing the business a lot of money and a lot of downtime and a lot of frustration and maybe losing a good employee that could otherwise have been great. So yes and no is absolutely right.
That was Speechmaster Academy communications coach Terry Barridge. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Executive producer is Heather Dawson. Producers are Nick Schilberger, Chris Ashmore, and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts and Belinda Trimboli. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.